Talking computers. The idea seems pretty commonplace today. We have assistants on our phones like Siri, Google Now, and Cortana, and there are even products designed specifically for talking like Amazon's Echo. Well, it's certainly no easy feat to create reliable speech recognition or an intelligent AI to interpret commands. One of the frequently overlooked components of these systems are their voices. We're at the point now where computer voices are almost indistinguishable from human voices, though the search to achieve this realism has been going on for nearly a century. Our story starts, well before computers, at the 1939 World's Fair in New York. Between the introduction of the Viewmaster and Electra the robot, Bell Labs showed off a device they had developed called the voder. By pressing 15 different keys, an operator controlled buzzing and hissing sounds, which when put together created a voice purely electronically.
She saw me.
A pedal adjusted the pitch of the voder, which meant that the operator could even add expression to the voice to, interesting results?
Whom did she see?
She saw me.
Yeah, the voice wasn't that good, but it was intelligible, which meant that the voder was at least somewhat functional. The voder itself was only the second half of a device called the vocoder, invented by Homer Dudley while working at Bell Labs. The vocoder was originally a method to compress audio bandwidth as well as encrypt a voice transmission, but is most commonly known for its usage in music. Fast forward to over 20 years later in 1962, where, also at Bell Labs, John Kelly and Carol Lochbaum programmed an IBM 704 computer to speak. The real amazing part of their program, though, was that it didn't just speak, it could also sing.
Daisy, Daisy, get me your answer.
While visiting Bell Labs, Arthur C. Clarke heard this singing demo and used it to write probably one of the most famous sci-fi scenes of all time.
Irish marriage,
I can afford a carriage.
but you look sweeter on the feet of a bicycle.
One of the first companies to enter the field of speech synthesis was Votrax, started by Richard Gagnon in 1970, when he created his first voice synthesizer over a concern that he was going blind. He licensed his design to the company he was working for at the time, who continued to develop the idea from a simple board to an external box for computers to an integrated circuit to eventually cards that could be installed into a computer. You can see one of the earlier models here arguing with a similar device by DEC.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You did not.
Yes, I did.
You didn't.
Yes, I did.
You did.
Yes, I did.
Look.
Votrax wasn't the only company to toy with the idea of computer speech synthesis though, and at CES in 1978, Texas Instruments unveiled a speech product of their own. It wasn't some piece of computer equipment like Votrax, it was a toy. The Speak and Spell, an educational toy intended to teach children spelling. The little red box would say a word, which the child would have to spell out on the keypad.
Rain, R-A-I-N, that is correct.
Talking toys were nothing new by the late 70s, but what made the Speak and Spell special was that it wasn't playing its speech from some kind of mechanical recording. The memory to store digital recordings on the device at the time would have been prohibitively expensive, so the solution TI settled upon was to have the Speak and Spell generate all of its speech on the fly. Rather than play back the full recordings of words, it assembled recordings of phonemes, the basic elements of speech, into words through the TMS 5100 chip. As one article put it was the first time the human vocal tract has been electronically duplicated on a single chip of silicon. The same year that the Speak and Spell came out, Texas Instruments offered a speech synthesis add-on for their TI-99 home computer, along with cartridges that expanded its vocabulary. But shortly after, a new program arrived on the market that didn't need any special hardware at all. SAM, or Software Automatic Mouth, by Mark Barton, was released in 1979 for the Apple II, Lisa, Atari 8-bit line, and the Commodore 64. Unlike the TI-99, SAM was entirely software-based, and could output with the simplest audio hardware of the time, although results were just a little bit distorted. Barton's work even caught the attention of Apple, who gave him an early model of the Mac to port the software over. SAM sounded even better on the Mac thanks to its superior audio hardware over the Apple II, 8-bit audio versus 1-bit audio, which eventually captured the interest of Steve Jobs, who insisted on having the Macintosh speak at its first public demonstration. And that it did, even if they did have to cheat and use a more powerful prototype Macintosh model.
Hello, I am Macintosh. It sure is great to get out of that bag.
The Mac version of Sam, later named Macintalk and eventually just Plain Talk, has been updated a few times since its release, but voices included in it from the beginning are still available in OS X. For those of you who've seen my video on the Newton, the package it uses to speak is also based on Macintalk.
Oh, you had trouble with calculus. I did too, when I invented it.
The company behind Sam, SoftVoice, also released the program for Windows and Unix, though its most notable role might have been the inclusion with the Commodore Amiga. And you might also recognize it as the voice of Otto from the movie WALL-E.
Sir, I insist you give me the plan.
Alright, I'm sure when I mentioned Sam a bit ago I got everyone's hopes up only to be disappointed that I was talking about the wrong Sam. And you're right, there is indeed another computer voice named Sam. Microsoft Sam, that is, or Speech Articulation Module, introduced with Windows 2000, though probably most popularly with Windows XP. The Sam voice, if anything, is infamous for its ridiculous mispronunciation of words. For example, instead of saying soy, the voice would say swath. The Microsoft speech engine also supported more realistic sounding voices like
Microsoft Mike and
Microsoft Mary,
along with voices by the Belgian company Lernet and Hospi, which were most notably used as the voices for the aging character Bonzibuddy. With the introduction of digital assistants like, well, Bonzibuddy I guess, but mostly Siri, Google Now, and Cortana, a lot of work has been put into making the voices sound more and more realistic. Projects like WaveNet by Google's DeepMind have even taken a new approach to the problem. Rather than simulating the sounds like the voter or splicing together phoneme recordings, WaveNet uses a neural network to learn how to speak. The voice sounds really convincing, and it's possible in the near future we may be able to make a voice that sounds indistinguishable from human speech. Depending on who you ask, we might already be there. In 2016, Adobe introduced Voco, nicknamed Photoshop for Voice, because through speech recognition it allows for a voice recording to be edited as if it were plain text. That's cool and all, but the big feature Voco really offered was that with just 20 minutes of speech to train on, software can generate text-to-speech audio of the source's voice and make their voice say something they've never said before.
And I kissed Jordan 3 times.
It's both really cool and really frightening. I could use it to fix an error in one of my recordings, but at the same time the program could be used by someone else to make me say something ridiculous like, Bing is my favorite search engine, without my permission. Even if the software does open the door for more fakery, not every usage has to be malicious. It offers the benefit of making text-to-speech far more customizable. We might not be far off from being able to download the voice of our favorite celebrity onto our phones to tell us the weather, or have text messages be read in the actual voices of the person who sent them. Similar technologies have even been used by people who've lost their voices, like Roger Ebert, to help them be able to speak again.
This is the first version of my computer voice. It's what they call the beta. It still needs improvement, but at least it sounds like me.
Whatever the inevitable outcome of this technology is, there's only one thing to be sure about. That Homer Dudley, the creator of the voter, would have never seen it coming.